here to decode whether he's evil or genius, we have Esther Manini, host of the No Nation podcast, recently appeared in the stand-up sketch show, and she also appeared in a sketch with this really good-looking male model comedian called me. That was on the other day, Esther. You look great in it.
Thanks.
Used to be a stand-up back in the analogue world before it became digital floating heads too. So, as did Michael Odewale at Michael Odewale Comedy on Instagram if you want to go and laugh your tits off, because he's successful online, as we have to be now if we want to eat. And of course, Ria Lena, who recently appeared on Mock the Week and smashed it. My telly fell in half. You can find her at Ria Lena _ on social media. Also a trained virologist. Isn't that right, Ria?
It is, as opposed to all those untrained virologists.
No, there's a lot. You say that, Ria, but there's a shitload of those on my Facebook.
That's right, because they're all doing their own research, putting us out of a job.
We're going to talk about Che Guevara. Now, he's considered to be the ultimate revolutionary heartthrob. So I put it to you, panel. Would you? and if you're not comfortable answering that, would you like to be him?
Necrophilia, isn't it? When you have people.
Do you think he was fit or not?
He pulled off a hell of a beret, I would say that.
It's him and Frank Spencer, isn't it, for Beret of the Century?
I want that poster on my wall.
Do you fancy this revolutionary or not? It's a simple
Yeah.
question. I knew Benise, I didn't really need to ask Esther. Ria.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because on the one hand, because he's a socialist, you know that we'd all be satisfied by the end of the night.
Even Michael would get a bit of a hand shandage.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I don't think I would.
I'm gonna say yes, but it's a bit unfair on him.
But why?
Against him. So I'm gonna say yeah, I would.
Now let's get it all out in the open. Is anyone here a Che Guevara bellend? Have you ever had a T-shirt or a poster?
Yeah.
What did you have, Esther Benito?
I think I had a poster, but to be fair, my dad, who's 77, one wall of his living room is Che Guevara.
No way.
So that's, yeah.
And is that
so
just like the poster, or is that his politics?
No, it's his politics, but my daughter really pissed him off when she went, "Is that Michael Jackson?" And he's not.
There's a lot of crossover though, isn't there? Really?
Are we sure that he isn't your dad? Because I mean, I know that they say he got shot, but could he actually be your dad? Living in...
My dad would love that, but he's only got one hand, doesn't he, Che? Because they finished it off.
No.
So
I didn't know that.
Spoilers? I didn't know that.
You mean after he died, Esther, not before they cut his hands off? I was going to say, it's quite hard to be a good soldier without hands. I'm not against people without hands, but I don't generally want people handling guns without hands.
So, wait, they chopped his hand off after they shot him?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a souvenir,
Yeah.
not...
as a souvenir.
So he didn't steal bread, they chopped his hand off, and then they shot him later.
Correct.
As a good luck charm.
Michael, if I was to put you in this position, which country do you think you could overthrow the easiest? And would you become a benevolent leader, or do you think you would go Jackie Weaver, Hancock Council?
Easiest country to overthrow would be, I don't know why I just thought Finland.
Good answer.
I don't know why, they just seem
Because they seem really polite.
really chill, you know what I mean? Just come in, like, hey guys, I'm here now. I don't know, they seem really logical, they'd be alright with it.
Logical.
Ria, which country would you overthrow?
I'll be honest, I'm leaning towards a small Pacific nation, maybe like Kiribati or something. Just somewhere that, you know, if you're going to take over a nation, you want to be able to enjoy your time there. I mean, I hear you with Finland, and I see the ease of it, Michael, but then you're stuck in the cold for 11 months of the year. I'm not sure that alone would...
Okay, the networks are down, the equipment is ready, and we've crippled their supplies.
So...
Now, Esther has an interesting mix of cultural influences. Which part of the world would you go to?
I'd go America, because it's really easy. You just walk in. You just go to the White House and go, I'm here now. So, that's that. They would love it. They would love it. An old mixed Arab-Essex girl in power in the White House.
They'd be so confused by you.
Are you allowed to land there legally yet or not?
Russell, don't start. Yes, I can go there legally. I've been to America and it was fine. I mean, I was pulled out for a little bit of a chat, but apart from that, it was
Okay, you didn't see that one coming.
All right, we might be ready to move on this thing. If you want the work, you'll get a knock on your door any minute.
Okay, so let me give you the quick biography of Che Guevara. It was an amazing life. Born Ernesto Guevara in Rosario, Argentina on the 14th of June 1928 into an upper-class family of Spanish and Irish descent. Despite being a physically active child who excelled in football, rugby union, tennis and swimming, he suffered from severe bouts of asthma, which laid him up for weeks at a time, and during these periods he read a lot. I should have just got more asthma as a child. I could have got it first. He enrolled in the University of Buenos Aires to study medicine in 1948. He took a sabbatical year in 1951 to travel through South America on a motorcycle with his friend Alberto. On this trip, his left-wing outlook was cemented, and he became committed to fighting the inequalities and injustices he saw. That's what happens on gap years, guys. I mean, I got as far as Greece and bottled it and didn't want to leave Europe and came back with a few jams. He came back and invented socialism to Latin America. That's what he called gap years, skivers. He returned to Argentina, completed his medical degree in 1953 and then moved to Guatemala. During his time there, he witnessed the CIA-backed coup d'etat, which saw the removal of democratically elected Jacobo Arbenz and saw the installation of a military dictatorship, hardening his views against the United States. He moved to Mexico in 1954 and took a job in a hospital in Mexico City, and that is where he met Fidel and Raul Castro and joined their movement, the July the 26th movement, to overthrow the Batista regime in Cuba. The revolution succeeded, and Che held a number of government positions in Cuba. In 1954, he retired from his government job and renounced his honorary citizenship in order to bring about socialist revolutions around the world. You got one album. Stick with it, you know what I mean?
I want to know what that fight was, because you know that in 1964, he and the Castros had an almighty row. And he's like, that's it, I'm doing it somewhere else, and he stormed out. I want to know what that was.
Apparently, I think it was a bit more saying Harry Styles want to do a solo album. It was a bit more like that. Love being in the group, but I've got this good idea for a solo album called Going to Bolivia, which is what he did. He did try and release an album in the Congo, to drop the metaphor. He did go to the Congo. That went wrong, that revolution. Then he travelled to Bolivia in 1966, and in 1967 was captured by the Bolivian army. After a period of interrogation, he was summarily executed. A revolutionary to the last, his final words are reported to be, "I know you've come to kill me. Shoot, coward. You're only going to kill a man." He was 39 years old.
It's pretty epic, though, isn't it? Those last words go.
My last words were, please.
And now you're just urine running down your legs. No! So it's pretty epic.
I mean, what a life. No doubt about it. What a life. An iconic hero. And we could sit here and reflect generally on life, but alas, you'll find lots of other podcasts with just people chatting. Here we have jobs to get done. It's not people chatting the podcast. It's open an envelope and mess with your heads. Throughout the episode, there will be 3 envelopes you open. Surprising fact bombs, military assaults upon the mind. Your thoughts will be attacked with lethal bombs. And one of you will have envelope number 1. It may confirm the genius. It may tell you something you don't want to hear. But one of you will now have envelope 1, and I wish you to open it.
Its social reforms objectively transformed the lives of Cubans for the better. One of the things most critics can agree on is the success of the Cuban literacy campaign, which I just messed up by right.
I know. Of all the words you want to misread, literacy is not on that list.
Damn it. In just a few months, the literacy rate went from around 70% to 99.7%, and it's still around that figure almost 60 years on. Wow.
I mean, so we're going to it's all very well saying Che Guevara was a genius, but let's really, really unpack what this guy did, because it is astounding. He took an illiterate country, or more than a quarter of it illiterate, to full literacy, and that exists to this day. A country that does not know how to read and write is easy to deceive. It's got to be solid genius, surely, no matter what the reasons behind it. Giving everyone a decent standard of education in just a few months, that's got to be worthy of praise. Even though his reason was the first duty of a revolution was to be educated, he still did it. The walls of the educational system came down. He showed that education should not be a privilege and not just for the children of those who have money. I mean, that is more radical than anything the UK has ever done, apart from maybe changing policy to universities. You know, that's the closest we've done. I mean, that is fantastic.
But can we contextualize what he did, though? Remember, he wrote 2 books, one of which was about that motorcycle journey of his gap year. So did he selflessly literarized, that's a word, literarize a nation, or did he go, I need to sell my book, and now that I've ostracized the rest of the world through communist revolution, the only other people who are going to buy it and read it are going to be the people that I teach to read it.
Yeah.
And then that's what
only a comedian could have the thought, I'm going to make everyone literate so I can sell more of my funny shit.
I'm just saying, it's genius. It's genius, but I question if that was his real
I think
motivation.
you could argue that he didn't just want to teach people to read so they could enjoy like Charlotte Bronte and stuff. He thought people who can read and write can read maps and understand military strategy and become revolutionaries and work for the political good. So it
that worked so well in the Bay of Pigs, didn't it?
It worked. It sort of was another motive, but at the same time, he believed just because you're posh, you shouldn't be the only ones that get an education. Well, okay, in our country, like England, we still have an elite education and a normal education. We still have two systems, right, Michael? It's not exactly even, is it?
Yeah, it's true.
Did you go to a posh school, comprehensive grammar school?
I went to a posh school for a little bit, but then my mum, she ran out of money. And then I went to poor people's school, which was fine, you know, because my sister went there too, so it's kind of like a good, like I used to make fun of her for going to poor people's school and I later joined in there, you know what I mean? So I'm maybe the wrong person to talk about this from a revolutionary angle, because then
I like the fact that only one of you went to the posh kids school. Like, it's like your parents just went, hedging our bets on, let's just put the money, we'll go to that one.
I think they thought I needed more help with the now I do this, so yeah.
Hey, what's up? How can I help?
You didn't go to the posh school. Did you? No. It's weird, isn't it? You may have. The problem with the accent we share, you sound...
I'll be keeping my eye on you. Goodbye.
I know, everyone keeps saying I'm working class, and I'm not. I grew up in a real class house, so who's that? She's quite cool. Can she read? No, I just went, I went to just a normal school.
Normal. And what do you think of Che Guevara, this fact that he made a whole country literate?
I mean, that's pretty epic, isn't it? I mean, that's so much fun to CV. I mean, you can't really, get much better than that. But that's the kind of foundation of any single group that's fighting any kind of oppression. Like, that was what the Black Panthers did. They made sure that their entire communities were all educated properly, because the main thing that you find in a lot of these regimes is that they deteriorate education first, and if you deteriorate education, then it's easier to control. So any revolutionary group is going to make sure that they counterbalance that with education. So whilst it's brilliant that he did that, he's not the only revolutionary to have done that. I think it's a pretty standard move by most revolutionary groups.
And Ria, do you think it's the opposite on Instagram? The more people you are, the money you make. I see you're in the dark card, I don't know anything. Oh, my tit's falling out.
That's where I'm going wrong. Okay. Shit. Oh, okay.
Make a note of that, Ria.
I will. And the moment I can afford some, I will be getting some.
You're a doctor, aren't you? You can do your own. You probably got some like pack using freezer bags or something that we don't know.
The one lesson I learned from Che Guevara is, do your own tips. Yes, that's what I'm taking away from this hour. I totally agree with it. I love it as a concept. Go out there and educate. In fact, I think that we should not just... the thing is, he did it out of revolution, love, generosity, what do you want to say? It was a very altruistic thing to do, because quite right, that a lot of regimes come in and they go, let's keep the population stupid so that we can stay in control. But I'm the opposite. I'm like, I think it should be required. And I know that we require our children to go to school, but I'm like, you can't vote till you can read at least these things. That's my opinion. I'm like, this whole idea that everyone should vote? No. No, I'm so totally elitist in that direction.
But okay, a bit of a controversial question, but do you think there's a sort of minimum level of intelligence and responsibility before someone can vote? Or should someone who, I don't know anything about it, don't care, but it's my right to put an X next to something, do you think that's irresponsible, or do you think they're a citizen, they pay their taxes, and it's not my business?
Okay, put it this way. Can anyone drive a car? You have to take a test to drive a car. You have to prove that you know the rules of the road. I mean, we make sure that people know to buy rounds in the pub before we let them be British. because that's really important. So I think that there should be a similar sort of test before you go and put an X next to a name. Do you know who that is that you're putting an X next to a name? No, I just like the colors. You know, well, you should know what all the different colors
They
are.
are the shots that will be fired in the British Revolution with Sabu, let's face it. So he was driven by the poverty and conditions that he saw as a medical issue. Then he implemented free universal health care, and that's still in place today. The life expectancy in Cuba went up to some parts of the United States, still does, and still goes further than some areas. So in crumbling Cuba, you've got a longer lifespan in some parts of the capital of the United States thanks to the universal health care system. I mean, that's amazing. We hold it up as our NHS here, it's a genius thing, but they did it in Cuba too. It's incredible, isn't it? They've got an NHS.
I think it is, but then I don't know if you've seen that video on TikTok recently about the woman who made mac and cheese using Cheetos, where she reduces Cheetos down into some kind of glop and then puts pasta in it and calls it food. So I think there's more than just the healthcare reason that the lifespans of the Cubans they had.
I was so interested to see.
I
didn't know. You know.
I think it's a metaphor, but no, it's genuinely.
No, genuinely, if you're eating fish and fruit in Cuba, I would put more money on your life expectancy than I would on Cheetos and macaroni.
I mean, I'm rattling off a lot of stats here, but it's one of the biggest views in history, isn't it? Like, most of our, in a tiny Caribbean island, how about 100% literacy? How about an NHS? How about one of the lowest infant mortality?
But surely there's another
what we're talking about,
places because they don't, like, private healthcare will often insist and push a lot more C-sections, which obviously has a lot more complications. And
maybe.
I know, what if the dates don't match? What if you're like, I'm not free that day?
I want to give birth, I've also got pilates this morning. Michael, are you convinced that it's changed for the good?
I mean, I can't knock these medical achievements. Maybe there's a link because they don't have Coca-Cola over there. Maybe we can link this all into them not being able to drink that and babies being born longer. And,
I didn't know that. But so Cuba has no. Does it have any cola or at all? No.
Last time I checked, which I do on a monthly basis, because it's one of my top holiday destinations, but I don't know if I want to smuggle Coca-Cola in.
So you've been to Cuba, have you?
No. It's just somewhere I'd like to go. One day.
Google where you'd like to go and find out if there's cola there.
Yeah.
Could you give birth in a hospital and report back to us?
In a Cuban hospital.
Yeah, that'd be really useful.
Yeah. I mean, I'll check the cola situation, and then I'll find out how to give birth in a hospital.
I'd like that. It's all inclusive.
Wouldn't that be
Coca-Cola?
Well, wouldn't that be amazing if we suddenly, like, a study came out when literally Coca-Cola has been responsible for huge death rates, and that's why Cuba's got longer lifespan and less.
We have to say this is purely speculation, and the person speaking is estimating.
I'm trying to get that sponsorship, Esther.
Mike's got a Pepsi branded next to her, clearly.
I get some money.
Right, I think we should move on. This is enough socialist lobby. Let's move on to envelope 2, please. Who has it? And let's start digging some dirt.
He killed people, that's just a fact.
We're not just talking about sort of butterfly effect, he enabled the death of people after effective revolution kind of way. He literally killed people. Fidel Castro named Guevara the commander of the Cabana Fortress prison after the revolution and tasked him with the trials of those captured officials of the Batista regime. Most of these trials ended in executions through firing squads. Estimates vary as to how many deaths Che was involved in, but the general consensus is usually between 50 to 100. There's conflicting views as to whether Che was lenient or strict, but most accounts say he wasn't fazed by the death penalty. Now, I've never understood this about communism, wherever it springs up, North Korea, Soviet Union or Cuba, they love killing people, don't they? So we've got to understand that I went on the road and I saw the suffering of humanity, and I wanted to change the world. I disagree with you on certain points. I'm ashamed on your face and your family. I mean, it doesn't add up, does it?
It's kind of become freedom of speech actually means, not freedom of speech, but like freedom to live and have access to healthcare and education. Also means
okay, we got there in the end, and the journey's what counts.
But that's what I don't understand about extreme socialism, Rita. If we're all equal and we're sharing stuff, surely we should be able to assess each other's viewpoints and have a discussion and healthily disagree, rather than just machine gun someone in the head because they don't want to toe the line.
Well, it really does put getting canceled on Twitter into perspective. You know, you just go, oh, maybe we are doing it right. Every time I get upset about that, it's like, oh, it's one of those. Well, this is the thing that I've always been confused about communism: is you've got Cuba, North Korea, you've got China, you've got Russia, and you've got the haves and the have-nots, and that very much conflicts with what I understood it to be.
Exactly.
I thought we all worked on the farm. But some people are not working on the farm. Like, I'm working on the farm, and they're not working on the farm. And I'm going, why am I working on the farm?
And if you said why,
I don't know where I'm going with
come to the head for even saying the word why. The word why doesn't exist under communism. And he was a doctor killing people. I mean, you don't get T-shirts with Harold Shipman and Fred West's hoodies, do you? It's a Hippocratic Oath doctor killing people. By all accounts, quite blank-faced, not bothered about it, sort of like cutting a mole off or something.
You've put Harold Shipman next to Fred West there. Very, very...
I know, Fred West was not a doctor. Sorry.
No, yeah, not a doctor.
He really wasn't a doctor of building.
Have you heard Fred West speak?
A doctor of conservatories.
He was not a doctor.
It shouldn't make a difference, but it does, doesn't it, Michael? If someone trains as a doctor in the preservation of life, mixed with having their eyes opened to the pain and suffering of human beings,
Right.
it makes it all the more shocking. It puts him in the Dr. Crippen type, another murderous doctor. It puts him in that territory, doesn't it? It's all the more doubly evil and shocking.
You know you're murderous doctors, man.
Do you doubly judge him for the fact he was a doctor? And that he put such great store in I've seen that miners suffer. Look at their withered hands. I don't quite agree. I chop your withered hand off, disagree. I think it's complete hypocrisy.
It depends what type of doctor he was. You know, he could have been PhD, could have been a dentist. You know what I mean?
The dentists do like suffering, don't
they? They do, exactly. So it really depends on what type of person he was. I don't know. I'm a bit suspicious now because when I think about the Cuban literacy rate and how that jumped from 70 to 99% in just a few months, it makes me who's killing?
He killed all the big people. Literacy has jumped up, not with no reading lessons. We just killed the people who couldn't read.
That's how we're doing it. Just work
Exactly.
Maybe we're not doing that enough with kids today.
Just shooting children.
Have we gotten too nice to kids?
I know. But I can understand him wanting to get people in power. But he killed peasants as well, uneducated peasants who just weren't feeling the vibe of what he wanted to do.
Not that she didn't already.
The situation was uncomfortable for the people and for the Utopia, so I ended the problem, giving him a shot with a .32 pistol in the right side of the brain, with the exit orifice in the right temporal lobe. That's how he recorded it in his diary.
Because he's a doctor, so he was, being precise.
Is that how? What do you think? If a doctor's murdering, then sort of does a little description in his diary?
It's a bit macabre, isn't it? But I think that a non-doctor would probably go, "I shot him in the head." And this guy's like, the exit orifice was precisely in this point. It's a bit more detail than one needed, but I suppose he felt like he had to use his degree somehow. Like every so often his mom's in the back going, you need to have something to fall back on, because that's what my mom does. I need to have something to fall back on. So that's...
I think it sounds like someone enjoying it. It's sociopathic, isn't it, Esther?
Well, I mean, clearly if you're that kind of motivated, then I guess you want to take down anyone who's going to stand in your way. So you start to dehumanise people, and you see it, and you can see it on social media. We can see it now that if somebody doesn't hold your opinion, the absolute vitriolic hate that is spewing out of people's mouths at somebody who maybe questions or doesn't agree. So he's kind of just put that in practice of that indoctrination of, if you don't respond the way I want you to respond, I'm going to absolutely lose my mind with you and kill you. What I'm saying...
Murderous language in it half the time.
It shows how power hungry and how above the Lord was, how confident that he could just write down written statements of his murder and then just not be worried about that. Most people wouldn't want to document, murders that they've done. He's just like, you know what, I'm gonna put it down. I don't care about future juries, anything like that.
With a little drawing, how was your weekend? I went to the beach and I killed a peasant. It was nice. John Lee Anderson, who wrote the biography of Revolutionary Life, did say, however, he's yet to find a single credible source pointing to the case where Che executed an innocent. What he means is these people were always guilty within the context of the revolution. Also, bear in mind, 93% of the Cuban people approved of the executions carried out by the government.
Of course you would. You're not going to say I disagree because you've been killed. I'm very much behind my neighbour being shot and it's not peaceful. I'm very indicated that.
Yeah, I suppose it's like if we were all on a deal and one of the comics got sacked, we're like, yeah, I'll back that decision. Yeah. They don't connect the page.
I know.
I think they were still just feeling grateful that they were taught to read the survey in the first place.
Right, yeah.
Going, I'm so pleased I can read this. Yes.
He did also say this, Michael. Let me say, at the risk of seeming ridiculous, that the true revolutionary is guided by great feelings of love. Yeah, nothing says love like putting a few bullets in someone's head with
That's
the
beautiful.
to the right temporal lobe.
That's going in my Valentine's Day cards on Moonpig. Just a great revolutionary. It's feelings like love. Boom. I'm trying to think of a dictator pun to put in my card now. I'm trying to word it right. Look at my unsolicited dick. No, it's not that.
Unsolicited dictator.
Yeah, something like that. I'm a workshop it.
Just to flip that on its head, though, so he's killing people, but they're only the ones that are wrong in the eyes of Cuba at that point in time. And then in 1964, he decides to leave and go elsewhere and bring his love to other people. Does that mean that he ran out of people? What? You sort of go... Do you know what I guess maybe I'm going a bit...
No, I think
well,
if you're asking me, I think you could say it's ego. I think they probably couldn't quite believe it actually worked, and he's thinking, we're invincible, let's take this show on tour and smash some other territories.
Let's
That's
do
what
this
he was
on the
thinking.
road. So what went wrong in Congo?
Congo, the same thing that went wrong in Bolivia. It's not the same when you're not from that place, don't have the terrain, don't really have the people that live there on side. It's easier for them to sell you out, report you, let the military know where you are, and ultimately that's what led to his downfall. I suppose, sorry to keep coming to you, but the Hippocratic Oath, can you really shoot someone in the head if you've taken the Hippocratic Oath, really?
Well, okay. You have to remember that it's an oath. It doesn't come with like an electric shock machine that's strapped to your body that shocks you every time you contravene the oath. So it's really up to you to see the oath through. But I'm going to be honest with you, Russell. I think he left that. I think he really left that part of his life behind him quite a while ago.
Like you when you did your first weekend at the store.
Yeah. Going, virology, comedy.
I can see a boulder over there, but here's a punchline.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, also, when you're in the middle of a medical degree and you go, I'm going to down sticks and just go on a motorcycle tour for a year, I think it's amazing he returned to it.
Michael, can you forgive him for being a doctor and a lover of the people? Just before we move on and doing what he did, do you think you can forgive that?
A doctor and a lover of the people. Like, I think murder is wrong. That's. Hey, listen. I don't want to come in with a controversial point of view. I think murder is wrong.
But is it murder? That's what we have to decide. Is it cold-blooded murder, or is it a necessary killings and executions to get the revolution done?
Murder is murder, though, no? I mean, it's under the veil of murder, and then you just try and find the reasons.
That's what I would argue.
Because I'm sure if you ask the person, they would say, I was murdered.
Yeah, have we surveyed them? There's a good call.
You know, it's one of Michael's sales today. They're quite sort of, not many words, but the ghosts do tell you what they feel.
I think that's always the thing after death. Were you murdered? And if they say yeah, they're probably not lying.
It's killing for the greater good, but you're deciding what the greater good is.
Exactly, yeah.
And who should be killed.
I think we should move on to envelope 3 because I can't really get him out of that one, but envelope 3 is going to mess with your mind, so it has it.
Okay, I've got it. Here we go. Despite the revolution being based on equality, he had a history of being a hypocrite.
Yeah, this one is perplexing to me. We can put aside it was war and the executions and whatever it takes for the greater good. I'll put that aside, even though it's as distasteful as fuck. But Guevara put forward the idea of what he called the new man. Okay, selfless and cooperative, obedient, hardworking, gender-blind, incorruptible, non-materialist, and anti-imperialist. It's like a 2021 sentence. It's like someone's Twitter profile who's 19 years old. But despite basing the revolution on the grounds of equality, speaking out against racism in the US, at the UN he did this massive speech against American racism, and he undertook a lot of work in Africa, and he was trying to help out the Congo. We found out what he really thought about black people in his diary. The Negro is indolent and a dreamer, spending his meagre wage on frivolity or drink. The European has a tradition of work and saving, which has pursued him as far as this corner of America and drives him to advance himself, even independently of his own individual aspirations. Wow.
Wow.
How is that a socialist? Who wants to start?
He's very honest in his diary. I mean, he's very. I
Incriminating
don't know if
stuff.
he thought that like people weren't gonna read it like once he's passed, just out of curiosity, just like things that are just against his whole philosophy. So that's quite interesting.
Well, how can someone who thinks that really... Let me tell you this is what I've got a problem with. What he stood up and said in public. Those who kill their own children and discriminate daily against them because of the colour of their skin. Those who let the murderers of blacks remain free, protecting them and furthermore punishing the black population because they demand their legitimate rights as free men. How can those who do this consider themselves guardians of freedom? Woo! Oh, you're such a big man, Jade. And then in his diary, I hate that.
Yeah.
What a fake. What a liar.
No, are you kidding? I'm sorry. Can I change my answer from before? I would totally. If this guy came up on Tinder, I would be there.
Alright, go on then.
Right? All I needed was that one quote about non-gender, all that stuff. Boom. That is the man every woman has been looking for the last 20 years. First of all. Second of all, here is a guy that even though he doesn't respect certain swathes of the population, is saying in public, I still think you're wrong to kill them. And let's, again, forget about the 50 to 100 people that he right-templed.
Okay, Marcel told...
So here is someone that... Yeah. So in private, can't stand certain sections of the population, and yet in public still says, stop killing them. I'm sorry, that's not him hard to say. That is...
Went to the Congo. So he basically, when you're saying I'm for equality of all, but then you're seeing difference in people according to their makeup, their genetic makeup, then fundamentally you don't see people as equal.
It is like someone, I hate Spanish food. Well, why are you going on me for then, Gary? Do you know what I mean? Don't like paella, go Brighton. What was he doing hanging in the Congo, helping people who he believed were inferior and weren't able to help themselves? What kind of messed up shit is that? What is that, virtue signaling?
I think that's why it went wrong. I think we've discovered why it went wrong, because he got there and he got very confused. Because I'm going to assume that in the Congo it was black people versus black people, and he had no idea. He was like, I don't know.
It seems to me like he's gone into a country that isn't his own domain. People have rejected his essentially quite a colonialist, I'm going to come in, save you complex, and he's then reacted in his diary as such.
Yeah, it sounds like he was doing quite an early version of comic relief. It's the whole Stacey Dooley thing. Let's take a comic fix with the baby.
Yeah.
But I think he got there and people weren't receptive to the revolution. I think that's what ran in the comedy. The revolution, like, to be honest with you, the leader's a bit of a tit, but let's not rock the boat. We're cool.
Yeah, but nobody's okay with somebody outside their demographic telling them what they need to do. Nobody.
Well, let's just remember, this is a Spanish Irishman from Argentina that's just done that in Cuba. Like, this isn't his first foray away from home. Like, everyone keeps going, it's not your country. It's like, no, Cuba wasn't his country, and before that, Mexico wasn't his country, and before that, Guatemala wasn't his country.
But he's not right to disparaging things about Bolivians, is he? In his diary.
Well, I think, to be fair, he got shot before he could.
Yeah, and he didn't have hands.
He didn't have a hand.
He didn't have a hand.
Do you think that, Esther, this is just the equivalent of someone unearthing a tweet from 2009 and getting cancelled? We're unearthing his diary before he went to the Congo and cancelled it.
I'm genuinely shocked because I had never read that, and I've grown up being kind of Che Guevara indoctrinated. I mean, to be fair, I haven't had huge amounts of conversations. I mean, I've kind of, it's one of those things, you know, you just used to, I just grew up with my dad constantly going on about his politics, and my dad's a real old school communist, and but
you're like the dad you like's got this thing.
but I've never, and I'm just thinking, I'm sure I did read his diary.
Well, I'll give you another quote then. Listen to this one, strap in. The Negro, those magnificent examples of the African race who have maintained their racial purity, thanks to a lack of affinity with Bailey, have seen their territory invaded by a new kind of slave, the Portuguese. Now, let me tell you why this is so much more repulsive. I'm not trying to get in on my high horse in 2021. What blows my mind is the population of Cuba, this is Afro-Cuban, now this shocked me, is almost one half. It's between a third and a half. So if 40 to 50% of the population are hateful, I mean, it makes the hypocrisy so much worse. We can just laugh at his silly Congo venture, but Cuba is like the home gig, and he's still slating half the audience.
Whom he still taught to read.
Yes. And I'll tell you what's worse about the stench thing when you look into this. He famously stank and was one of the most smelly people ever to live the earth. He had a nickname, El Chanko, the pig, as a child.
Well, it's quite an interesting thing because I remember having a conversation when I was younger, and my mother said, always be wary of somebody who's made into a statue. So anyone who becomes iconic, or their image becomes iconic, always be wary of them. So I think
that's motivation to not be remembered.
Isn't it?
I thought you meant like witchcraft, like if they turned into an actual statue, be wary.
No, but like all these people who are kind of...
Don't go to Covent Garden, people who,
you know, being transformed into concrete by a magical ray.
Yeah, just before your eyes. I was like, yeah, I would be wary.
Always be wary, like the G-Star stuff.
We can push aside, Mike, the racism thing by just going, well,
I just did some asking around, and this guy is a sustainability manager and an environmental consultant for Globe Oil. Do you have any idea how wealthy and sadistic those kind of people are? So yeah, please don't let him...
He was just someone that read a bit too much Marx and wanted to masturbate in the jungle.
It's sad because you said he famously stank, so we don't know if he was smelling them or if it was just his own smell.
Didn't think of that. Why does everywhere I go the people stink?
Why? Everywhere I go,
even in Congo, they still smell. No, man, it's strange.
Yeah, well, I mean, Mike's nailed it there. Can we take it there? Anyone seriously was that much of a hypocrite, even a revolutionary Ria? Can we? Seriously?
No. Were we? I mean, I get that. I get his place in history, but
yeah, he's still on Esther's dad's wall, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, but my dad's not communist. I'm going to talk to you about this.
The moment I find that for me, the line is the moment that it does become something that students wear and then retire the moment they hit real life. That's when you don't take it seriously. So I think that's where you just go, oh, you know, he's been. I mean, this is where trolls come from. What we're seeing is basically if he had Twitter, all of this would be an anonymous troll account, wouldn't it?
It would be. Share it out. By the way, you smell. And then it's just an extra profile and followers.
So.
But the people often talk about, oh, he reached really well, but then they forget how it was done. They went out to farms that were over a certain size, 1,000 acres, and went, you don't own this anymore. No matter how you built up this world, it's not yours. Tata, seized, redistributed. Would you be in favour of that, like just seizing it? You know, I know there's distastefully wealthy billionaires in our society, but would you ever go as far as to think, let's seize some of their shit and redistribute it?
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if we stole the wealth that people stole from us? That's out of order. I don't know. That doesn't sound fair.
I just ask them to pay their taxes.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that is the nitty-gritty of a revolution, though. You kind of have to take stuff back in a way, because that's how it works.
I thought it was going to be a lot lower, but in fact, you had to have a farm over 1,000 acres. That's 566 football fields before they seized anything. That seemed fair to me.
I play a lot of those farming games on my mobile, and I never really get past level 5. So I feel like if you got level 5 farm, that's more than enough. You know, anything where you have to start making in-game purchases, that's too much of a farm. You know what I mean? That's where you have to check the purchase history, and then that's when you scale it back. Yeah.
What would you seize back, Esther, if you could, from society and distribute amongst other people? Doesn't have to be money, it could be anything. Ice cream, chocolate.
Yeah, probably snacks. I think should be shared out more. We should, definitely have more snackage.
That would change imagine if, like, we went through this horrific pandemic last couple of years. Every day you open the door and there's a different snack on the door. It might be worth 20p, but change your fucking life.
It would. It'd be really exciting.
Space Invaders. What snacks have you today?
Tiny Toms. Yes, that's what I'd do. I'd make sure everybody gets a snack from their childhood on their doorstep every single day, and everyone would be a lot happier.
Maria, what would you do? Probably lateral flow test or something, or is it a stool sample test tube?
Do you know what? Okay, this is so geeky. And but something that like tutoring. You know how? Because okay, and I'm coming from the point of view of a mum.
Another murdery reading doctor.
No, but you could be tutored in. No, you can get tutored in whatever you want. You can get tutored in golf. You can get tutored in. You know how there's some crazy sports that you go, how did you get good at that? You go to the Olympics and go, how in the world did you get good at that as a kid? You're like, anything you want, but just like there's
curling,
a lot of tutoring going on. Hurling.
And curling. That's what Michael will need to get. If he's going to Finland, he needs to learn how to curl.
He'll definitely need to curl. Yeah, bring a broom, but I'll give you the tutor. I'm just saying that there's always this is unfairness where you've got all these kids in private school and they're getting all this extra tutoring, and then they've got fencing lessons and the rest of it. They've got all this extracurricular fun stuff. I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, you get to do all this fun stuff. That's what I'd redistribute. I'd be like, everybody just gets to have a go at something they want to have a go at. Someone's going to teach you something. You want to salsa dance? You can just salsa dance.
Michael's like curling instructor in Finland. I will be the leader. This is where like next week on Sky we're like, he wasn't joking. When he storms the Finnish Parliament with a gun.
I like the fact that I want to overtake him because they just seem logical. Like he'll just turn up and they'll go, he seems reasonable. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, guys,
become aggressive. Yeah, don't be aggressive.
We are out of time, and it's time to move on to the votes. Now, before we move to the vote, I know we've been quite harsh, but what the guy did was clearly amazing. He was a massive intellect. He was a military genius. We can really speak about that. Some of the operations he pulled off with a very small pod of soldiers, men and women, who took on national armies and time again won and made real lasting change. At the same time, a murdering, hypocritical, racist bellend. We move to the vote. I'm going to go to Esther Manito first. Che Guevara, daughter of a Che Guevara fanboy, or Che Guevara evil or genius?
I'm evil.
Evil. Well, I mean, your dad's going to be listening. You better just give us a sentence.
It's good. Well, I kind of have this opinion before anyway, because I'm not a communist myself, and I don't believe in kind of justifying.
Your Labootson's a lovely babe. But what will your dad say when he? What did he say when he knows you?
Well, we've had these discussions, and many a time, and I don't agree with all his politics. We agree on some things, but we don't agree on all. But
what swung it for you, Evil? Tell me, the hypocrisy or the murdering?
I can appreciate somebody who has been able to manoeuvre in a military fashion the way he did, and he brought literacy en masse to an entire country. Firstly, he wasn't acted alone, and I don't believe that's something that is so uniquely just to him. I think a lot of other groups have done that for their communities as well. But I don't agree with basically a dictatorship of one ideology, and that's something which, well, we better go to the unsolicited pick that is Michael Adewale.
Yeah. Why are you going to go evil or genius for Che Guevara?
I think I might have to go for evil. Just the whole black thing is kind of a deal breaker. The hypocrisy actually kind of made it a bit more relatable in terms of his ideology with socialism. Because I kind of want to be a socialist myself, but I'm a little bit selfish. You know what I mean? Like I want a revolution, but I still want one-day delivery from Amazon. I don't know if those two things like go together. So like I appreciate that hypocrisy related, but just you have to say no, man, it's very easy.
I mean, socialism would be so easy if Rolexes weren't so pretty, but
I know. Do all that.
Make Rolexes more ugly.
Why can't everyone have a Rolex?
So Rhea, we know there's no tension. We know that Che Guevara, but not every episode, in fact, not the majority of episodes, do we get a unanimous decision. So it comes down to you really to decide whether he's unanimously evil or can you push the positive line dark ointment.
You know, it's tricky. I'm going to admit, I'm the opposite of Michael with that. I fully admit that if I were in charge, I'm an elitist, and I would very much not have everyone be equal on a number of different fronts. So in that regard, I can certainly respect a lot of things that he did. You know, I agree with Esther with that literary program. He wasn't alone and everything else. But at the end of the day, and this is what I'm saying, coming from an elitist, at the end of the day, he failed, which is not genius. That's just dumb. He failed. So I'm gonna have to vote evil.
It's unanimous. Che Guevara on everyone's wall, including Dad's,
Poor
is
Barbara.
unanimously evil.
He's going to be
BBC Radio 4 Evil Genius has just cancelled Che Guevara. Please troll all of us equally. This is a communist episode on 666. I want to share the hate with you guys. That's the kind of benevolent host I am. Thank
We're
you.
going to get so much hate for calling him evil, aren't we?
Thank you so much. What an amazing panel. And thank you. Well, not an easy episode to navigate our way around. Maybe we'll just continue redoing this episode until we get the result we want. That's the kind of communist I am. Thank you so much. Esther Benito, Michael Odewale, Rita Lena, thank you very much. Che Guevara Evil, please, if you stumbled across this because you're into American politics or you're a fan of one of the mediums on here, please go to BBC Sounds, hit subscribe, feel free to tweet, let us know. This has been Evil Genius. I've been your host. If you want to at me, I'm at Michael Odewale Comedy. If you've got any issues with anything, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK. Vi gør straks klar til vigtig information og beder alle om at rette ryglænet op, spænde sikkerhedsbæltet og høre godt efter. Med Norwegian Reward kan du selv vælge en ny fordel for hver 8. flyvning, f.eks. gratis sædereservation, fast track eller ekstra bagage. Og du tjener selvfølgelig cash points fra første flyvning. Læs mere på norwegianreward.com.
BBC Sounds, music, radio, podcasts.
Warning, this episode contains strong language. Genius. Welcome to Evil Genius from BBC Radio 4, and what a lineup we have for you this afternoon. Dribbling, tackling and an overhead kick to the face. Just three of the things I did when the pubs reopened in 2021 after COVID lockdown. It's a sporting subject today, and in fact, as I speak these words, Group 2 are playing Group 3 in the 2021 tournament. I do of course mean vaccination groups, and many of us are thrilled that the over 80s will play Lung Disease United in the semi-final of the FA Shielding Cup. Today, I have a panel of supremely talented jesters who are all here to talk about Diego Maradona. At the end of the podcast, I'll use my hand of God to help them to press one of these buttons. Evil or genius. Okay, and what a panel we have today. Everyone's playing up front, gutted. We've got Susie McCain, stand-up comedian and Celtic fan. From north of the border, Susie. Whereabouts?
In Glasgow.
Glasgow. Real Scotland. Fake Scotland, Edinburgh.
Oh, that's just London, but it's that's sunny Glasgow.
It's London plus kills, isn't it, Edinburgh? we got Johnny Cochran, comedian, host of the How's Your Father podcast, and an Arsenal fan. Is that good, Johnny?
No, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's more testing. It's just showing you the full spectrum of emotions you can feel as a football fan, Arsenal. We had glory days back in the day, and now we're just an insipid bunch that pray for more. So
that's clearly who I should be supporting them. It's like you strip off something.
Yeah, pretty much.
And hailing from Leeds United is striker John Richardson, also a comedian, but primarily the striker of Leeds United. Is that right, John?
Yeah, I'll take it, absolutely.
So are Leeds United doing well at the moment? Where are they?
They're back in the Premier League. We've had the gamut of emotions that an Arsenal fan has had, plus actual misery having gone down to League One rather than just not having won the FA Cup every year since its inception.
I've got a question though. As a human being, as a football team, would you rather be top of the Championship or in the Premiership and just hanging on with nails?
You've got to be in the Prem, like hanging on. You know, even if you're doing cliffhangers every year, the fact is that you're getting the drama and emotion narrowly missing out. Like you're doing an Indiana Jones, you know, where he reaches back to grab his hat, that kind of thing, to avoid disaster every year. So take that excitement and stay at the top tier.
When I'm in Ibiza, I've not given up. I don't go pasture at night, but I go out to the day clubs. I'm a legend. That's my thing. But I've given up.
But it's more like it's the nightclubs in the evening giving out free champagne and begging them into fans to be there.
True.
And the daytime you have to remortgage your house to go there.
It's pretty much what goes. It's not far from what goes on, John. When I get there.
There's a distinct difference between English football and Scottish football.
Yeah, there's only
There's
only one league in Scotland, isn't there?
Well, there is.
There's a wee league in the big league.
That's it. That's pretty much it. There was obviously with the pandemic, all the clubs have launched their own TV channels, and a commentator gets sacked because he came back from half time and said, sorry about the delay. This is for a Premiership football team in Scotland. He went, I had to go for a wee jobby.
I love it. Like someone's doing a Scottish character. So Maradona, fans, are we all fans? Before I give you the amazing life story in a few words.
Yes.
Do you think he's the best footballer that ever lived, John? I mean, we'll get into it deeply.
Well, it depends on what you value, doesn't it? I like defenders. You know, I think football is the battle of wills. And, you know, if the defender outwits the attacker, no one talks about it. Sure, he scored a couple of great goals. But, you know, what about the defenders that blocked some of those attacks? You know, why aren't we talking about them? Why are we not debating the life and times of Tony Adams?
Yeah. Like the defenders, though. That's not what football's about.
I go one step further. I only like goalies.
Or the subs. I mean, come on, there's number 10.
They're the real heroes, aren't they? So it's the ones that stay on the bench, the subs, ready to kick into action.
I actually think Maradona is probably the greatest player that's ever been.
Right, well, let's see. What an amazing life. He was born 30th of October 1960 in Milan, Buenos Aires, and his childhood home is a shack in Villa Fiorito, a shanty town with a reputation as one of the most dangerous in the city. Proper poverty, no running water, no electricity, nothing. He went to work early and he sold small scrap items from discarded tinfoil from cigarette packets. Now, fair play for doing that, but I've never been out thinking, I wish there was someone to save me the trouble of the shop for some old bits of tinfoil. Oh goody, there's a local tinfoil bin seller. But apparently he did make a living selling bits of foil. That's the thing. He was given a leather football for his 3rd birthday by his uncle, who already of course achieved his maximum height at that point. Aged 8, he was given a trial with the youth team of the First Division side, Argentinos of Huddersfield Juniors. He made his professional debut in 1976, 10 days before his 16th birthday. He became the youngest ever player for the national side. Barcelona paid a world record fee of $5 million for him in 1982. The whole of Argentina protested his departure. In 1984, the £6.9 million transfer fee took him to Napoli, where he helped them become the first southern club to win Serie A. England played Argentina in the quarter-final of the 1986 World Cup. 6 minutes into the second half, Maradona jumped high into the air and punched the ball into the net. Susan McCabe laughing. 4 minutes later, Maradona scored again, considered the greatest goal of all time, giving Argentina a 2-1 victory. Now, a lot of Scottish people actually injured the same fist punch in the air that night. Maradona was banned for 15 months for taking cocaine while playing for the Napoli team. In 1991, he actually snorted the whole goal line on his neck. He suffered an overdose in 2000 and a heart attack in 2004, gastric bypass in 2005, and was in hospital again suffering from hepatitis in 2007, as I like to call that string of events, Ballarat in 2012. He had brain surgery for a possible bleed on the brain in November 20 and died from a heart attack on 26th of November. So he never really got to that age, really, 60. Argentina held 3 days of national mourning in his honour. My God, what a life. I think we should open envelope number 1 and just get straight in. So if you have envelope number 1,
oh yeah, that's me.
Right. You can open that right now.
Right.
How beautiful that.
One of the greatest ever football players in the world, Maradona was a legendary footballer with folk hero status, worshipped by his fans like a god. He scored one of the greatest goals in the history of football and transformed the fortunes of the Napoli team. He came from a background of total poverty and deprivation to become one of the greatest football players in the world.
So I didn't realise he was that young when he did his first top flight game, 15 years old. Did anyone do anything, was anyone good at anything as a teenager? I was just shocked. I did nothing of value till I was 28. That's bad, isn't it?
To be honest, I think
look at that. All deliveries received. Now let's just hope they know how to use them, right?
They end up younger than me. It really upsets me. Like, I found out that LeBron James is a month younger than me, and I'm really unsettled by that information. Like, he's a significant guy that has not only achieved everything in sport, but is a cultural icon. And I don't leave my house.
That is the law at the moment at the point of recording.
Well, if I was as good as LeBron James, I could walk out and go, I'm LeBron James, motherfucker, I'm off to shoot some hoops. You know, so sports people do act as a bit of a reference for me that can be more than unsettling.
It's embarrassing when you are older than footballers, if you still follow football, because obviously you get into football and by definition you're younger than them, you're, you know, a teenager or a 10-year-old or something, and they're adults, and even at the time the footballers that you love were like 19, 20, 65, they were 40 or 50 years old, and now I am the 40-year-old man who idolises 19-year-olds.
It's weirder, isn't it?
Very, very
weirder.
And you start saying really awful things about, you know, you just enjoy being young as well, you know. I mean, by all means enjoy the game, but, you know, don't give your life up to football. Just, you know, enjoy just not having the weight of the world on your shoulders, lads. I can't meet any of these, but I've been to a couple of Leeds United events, and you cannot talk to footballers because what are you going to say without? I just sound like the most pathetic. You know, I've got a corn now. You know, so you get to it where you just get a corn and that's it. You can't play football anymore. You know, it's not like cruise shit or anything like that.
It's a corn. Do people still get corns?
I've got one, mate. I've got one now. I've got a corn, mate. Yeah.
I think there is that. I think I turned 40 last year, and you see, obviously when you turn 40 as well, I think that's such a thing. It's just such a thing in your head, especially when, like John was saying, he's like 40-year-old bloke shouting at 19-year-old boys, and he goes, "Oh, it's a bit strange. It's a bit strange when you're a lesbian shouting at young guys." But it's like for example,
I'd watch it. I would watch it. If there was a video, 40-year-old lesbian shouts at young boys, I'm downloading it.
I can confirm there is video.
I don't think they're lesbians anymore. I think they're probably so. Like Johnny, you're an Arsenal fan, so I clearly right now I'm in the huff with Arsenal. Tierney, great player, and he's like a young lad, and I've met him, and even when I'm, he was such a really nice guy, and he was really mature and all that, but I just keep thinking, I could probably just be your auntie. No, I just can't, don't worry about the football, son, don't worry, there's some chicks. You're at granny's, there's some chicks.
Are you offering your services as a professional auntie to millionaire footballers?
I would love that.
In Napoli, I mean, it was amazing what he did in Napoli. Napoli were this sort of almost joke team from the south that never won anything. They became the first southern club to win Serie A. They did twice, of course. His image appeared in murals and shrines on city walls. One commentator described him as the social redemption of our city. That's a lot of weight to go on someone's shoulder. I mean, my name appeared on a bus in Southend, and I found that quite a lot of pressure that people were entering me at the seafront. He offered Argentinians a way out of their collective frustration, and that's why people love him. He's a divine figure, as former teammate Jorge Valdano. I mean, how many footballers have got that sort of godlike? When you think of, like, I suppose the next equivalent thing, Pele, and you watch footage, and he's great, he's still like just a normal bloke. I mean, he's selling cop medicine now. You don't get much more down to earth than that. My willy's broke. No God goes, my willy's broken. I'm going to make an advert for willy pills. It's not very godlike.
It takes real strength. It takes real strength to show weakness.
But it takes manly strength, where there's something divine and otherworldly about him. When we speak on this program about people like Elvis or Picasso, he's got that sort of floaty, not realness about him. What is it?
I think it's the way he played the game, and I think it's because he came from nothing, but also I think you need to look that he came from South America, and that's embedded like in South American culture because the poverty levels are so extreme. But if you think, like, there's probably 4 famous Argentinians, right, that anyone in the world could name, and you go, Diego Maradona, Eva Perón, the Pope, who was the first Argentinian Pope, and then at a push...
Lionel Messi?
I can't be the only one thinking of Jorge Borges, the postmodern short story writer. Come on, guys.
I left that reference out, unfortunately.
That's actually a fucking banging writer.
No, do you know what the thing about it is when we talk about footballers? I always find it a little bit annoying the way that so many people kind of crow about like the wealth and influence that footballers attain during their like professional careers. But from my outlook, it's always like, well, just like Diego Maradona, you can be, if you're blessed with footballing technique and you work hard to refine that, you can be from anywhere. You can be in a slum in Brazil, you can be on a council estate in Hackney, or you could be, you know, for some rich area. But if you're good enough, you'll make it. Whereas you look at all these uber wealthy jobs, you know, in terms of like, you know, city traders and stuff, they all come from the same place. Like, there's massive barriers to entry, whereas football is meritocratic in that way.
It's weird hearing Johnny speak, though. I'm not trying to be glib here or big us up. I know we're just like jesters, but it is similar to stand-up, a lot of the shit you say. Like, when you see a stand-up that's gifted, you can come from fuck all in stand-up, as long as you can just manage to do 3 unpaid gigs a week for a year while you're working. If you're that good, you will get noticed, poor, rich, or otherwise.
Who's the Maradona of stand-up then?
Well, there will be someone dead. It would probably be like
someone who
Richard
does
Pryor.
Like
Richard Pryor. We spoke about Richard Pryor. He was a Maradona-esque figure, I would say. A lot of parallels with today's subject.
And equally, if you didn't have Richard Pryor, you wouldn't have Eddie Murphy. And equally, if you didn't have Maradona, you wouldn't have a Messi or a Ronaldinho. Or, do you know what I mean? Like, these guys feed in to the narrative that inspire other people. Like, you look at the amount of talent that's came out of South America, and most of those guys came from the same background as Maradona, and that's the same with comedians, isn't it? There's a direct, you know, I think is it Aileen B who talks about the family tree of comedy, and everyone kind of leads to someone, and it's the same thing with football.
I wonder if I'm like one of the weird cousins. It's all across comedy. I mean, even some of the commissioners at the BBC, some of those only went to minor Oxford colleges. So anyone can make it, guys. Some of them got yourselves up by your bootstraps.
We on? Okay.
He lived his politics as well. He was a supporter of left-wing ideologies. Indeed, he had tattoos of Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, and once told the Pope that if he wanted to help the poor, he should sell the gold ceilings of the Vatican. What a lie. That's thought. I love it. Right, envelope number 2 is enough Maradona loving. Who's got envelope number 2?
Well, that's me. One of the most infamous cheats who got away with it. The hand of God goal. Maradona will always be remembered for cheating and claiming that it was divine intervention. Peter Shilton said years later he had greatness in him, but no sportsmanship.
I mean, the irony being, Peter Shilton was riddled with some sportsmanship, but no greatness. No, I mean, so seriously, if you could choose to be riddled with sportsmanship or greatness, what would you have? Oh, he's a very sportsman-like comedian. His skin, he's so sportsman-like.
I have shake everyone's hand.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Deliberately never smashed gigs. One thing I'll say about me is I am followable, even at my best.
I don't buy the opposition between sportsmanship and greatness. Some geniuses are weird, twisted, non-sportsmanlike, or not sane, and they cut their ear off, their Van Gogh or whatever. And there's lots of other accountant-like, mundane people who are also geniuses and very good. I don't buy this necessary opposition between sportsmanship and greatness, do you?
No, I don't think so. I think you can put someone insanely talented and very good at they work hard. But with regards to saying, no sportsmanship, if you have came from a corrugated hut with no running water and electricity.
Not your story, Susie Maradona's please.
Listen, we can only sell tin foil in Glasgow. Tin foil on the streets in Let's go. It's through the roof, boys. Let me tell you, if you're ever up doing a gig and you think, I need a bit of tin money, get yourself some tin foil.
There's a whole stock market for it. Yeah, foil's doing well today. Yeah.
So wait a minute, so you're saying because of his humble origins, that speaks to his sportsmanship, or it speaks to we should excuse his lack of sportsmanship?
I don't think it's. I think you've just got to understand the guy, and I think the guy just knew how to scrap and fight his way, and he would do whatever it took. But also, when he's put on that shirt for Argentina, he has quite literally the hope of a nation. So you imagine England at any tournament they're ever in, and all that on one player as opposed to a squad of players, and he literally carried that nation. So I think he had to do whatever he could, and probably, and it's nothing personal, but it was a couple of years after the Falklands, it was a bit feisty, and I think he done what he felt he had to do for his country and the people.
What's the worst cheating you've ever done, Susie?
I would say the worst thing, the cheap thing I've ever done is I used to have a flatmate. I never really got on with them. And I came in one night, and after a really bad big supper, I know every Scottish kid who goes just now, and I vomited from my room to the bathroom, and then he got up and said it was him, and he cleaned it. He didn't realise till he got to my room.
There's got to be a certain level of drunk to clean up someone else's vomit. I love that. That's brilliant. Yeah. John, what's any sort of sleight of hand you've got away with the line?
Not magnificent, no, I cheated myself. So when my 1994 Mermaid sticker album, I must have put about 40 quid into that thing, which was a lot of money in 1994, as we all know. And I was getting near the end, but I just couldn't get the last few, and all my mates were starting to finish. And I just thought, no one's ever going to check. So I just stuck a few swaps over it and rolls. I told everyone I'd finished. And it plagued me. Nobody else cares, and it plagued me. And I kept it, it's still in my loft as if I achieved anything. And then I put that story in my book, and people started sending me the sticker. And I even lied in the book. And in the book I said it was only one, so people started sending me loads of stickers of Brian D. And actually, there's about 10 I cheated on. So it just throughout my life, plagued me. It's just a pointless thing to cheat on.
Oh, mate, you've got to put the rest of the Cocos in there. You can't do that. Respect the rules. My one is, when I was back in school and we did sports day, the teachers launched an initiative to try and get the other kids who weren't really engaged in sport to engage with them. So they did alternative games like egg and spoon race and sack race and stuff. But unfortunately, I'm quite competitive, they applied the same scoring system, like you've got the same amount of points for winning the egg and spoon race as you did for the 100 metres race, and I could not risk our form losing the overall battle, so I phoned an injury and said that I needed to take part in the alternative sports events, and then all these kids who were like, yeah, I'm finally going to do something, just got absolutely bullied by me. I mean, I was smashing them in the sack race, the egg and spoon race. I not only cheated to get into the event, but I also held the egg down and was sprinting like you say, bolt to the end. Yeah, and then I didn't even have the shame for that as well. I was really rubbing it in faces. So, I think they were crying, in adoration at what I'd achieved, but you never know. They didn't seem that happy, really.
Right, so we got a good bunch of cheats here anyway. Let's go then, Johnny. Let's stop dancing about this. He jumped up in the air and punched the fucking ball in the goal. What a moron. That's
well,
out of order.
It is out of order, it's cheating, but on the same note, cheating happens sometimes, and we've just discussed our episodes of cheating, and it might even be down to Monopoly. Sometimes you take an extra, 100 out of the kitty, because it happens, you just want to win. And the thing is I completely agree with Susie. It leads back to the situation that he came from, and he was willing to go the extra mile to get over the line at the end of the day, whereas you might argue that people coming from the English national team, now I'm sure not all living in presidential palaces, weren't living in corrugated huts at that point, and they maybe weren't as desperate to do the same thing. And to be honest, at the end of the day, I know that we can all, we're still here talking about people, Maradona punching it in the net, but they won. So, you know, history remembers the winners, and I'm not excusing it, but he took the flak for cheating, and he was willing to do it to win, which he did, so I'm sure he didn't regret it.
And for non-football fans, the next goal he scored, some regard it as the greatest goal ever scored, ever. After what's probably the worst goal ever scored ever. John, come on, John, you can't let him off the hook for punching the goal.
No, I have to say, you know, he didn't come from a tin hut that morning. I imagine he came from a very nice hotel. You know, so he made the decision he made.
If you punched it on the day he left the tin hut, I would be like, fair enough.
Exactly.
Maybe you didn't have a shower, or you had to sell some tin foil on the way in.
But I will say this. There's a mathematical sort of brilliance to it. It's cheating. It's definitely cheating. But if you're 4'3" and you raise, you know, you've been up all night doing coke and doing whatever else he was doing, and you can raise that tiny arm 3 inches above your head and out jump a fully fit centre-foot goalkeeper, you know, that it shouldn't be what he's remembered for, because it just shouldn't have happened anyway. You know, you've just got Peter Crouch had done that. Yeah. Fair enough, he's got an advantage.
Yeah, I've never heard that argument before. So what you're saying is because the hand is where a head shouldn't be, given the average height
the
of
hand is where an ankle should be on a professional footballer, so, you know.
So he later, I think he makes it worse with his account of what happened. But first of all, he just lied, point blank, he never touched it. Then later on, he said it was divine intervention. It was the head of Maradona, but the hand of God. I mean, it's a little bit arrogant. It's like, say, I took a fucking roof off you, Apollo. You good luck with putting the tile up there, mate. That's as far as I would go. I wouldn't say, like, Jesus coloured in my last punchline. Like, oh.
If you didn't have cheeks and arseholes and people like that, then it frankly would be tedious, and that comes from a man who knows tedium. I know tedium inside out, mate. You know, why do I get the gigs I get? Because I turn up early and I'm polite. That's it. You know, it's not a Maradona bone in my body. So, you know, if you...
That defender of the comedy section. I'm woefully underappreciated.
Put me in at right back. I might get forward and knock across it.
John does some gigs where he only does setups. I just refuse to do the punchlines if I'm not fit.
I'm not an arrogant man.
The equivalent of clipping it in the channels.
Sportsman like Richardson, that's what we call it.
Do you think what John said there is correct? That football doesn't matter? I mean, when you're talking, it was a proxy for the Falklands War, that. I mean, football can be life and death for some
we won the Falklands, Russell.
Can I just say, the fact that you referred that to the war, like, England games get portrayed in the media, in the British media, as it's the war, it's Germany, and you're like, guys, give it up. Stop with the obsession. Yeah, and I know that's ironic from somebody.
I know.
Scotland, right?
An England-Scotland World Cup final. Why would you up remembering a war from 980 AD in no time?
So when it comes to an international game, the England-Argentina match, when there has literally been a war and people have literally died, then, you know, the tension is palpable, it is real. And the Argentinians always felt like the underdog in that war, for obvious reasons, because they were bombed and largely beaten in that war. Yeah, so when a little geezer punched it in the net, they're like, oh, cry me a river, do you know what I mean? Get a beater back out here, you know.
The war wasn't that long before, Johnny. It's not like they were like, right, pause the war, get this onto the football pitch. Like the war was a good few years before. True. Like, if England play Germany at the Euros, we are still going to get the World War II chat, which was not yesterday. No, and they'll be like, you know, like with Germany, and you're like, oh, it's fucking funny.
But what we also get is the story of the football game on Christmas Day between the troops. We don't know the score because football doesn't matter. So nobody says, well, England won the war, but actually Germany won that game.
We better crack open envelope number 3, because I think we're all itching to get to the world outside of football. So whoever has envelope number 3.
It's me, I think. Toxic masculinity. Maradona denies his rule, but there is plenty of evidence otherwise of violent behaviour. use of prostitutes, infidelity, and his image was as macho as it comes.
Yeah, I'm afraid. I mean, there is video evidence of this. It went on Argentine TV, and it appears to show, you have to be careful here, because it's from the point of view of we have not seen it from the camera phone. So we never actually see him strike her, but we hear a slapping sound audible on the soundtrack. Olivia's shouting in Spanish, stop, stop. Maradona didn't challenge the video's authenticity, but he denied that he says I was grabbing the phone. He says, have a look at the video, decide for yourself. This is really problematic, isn't it, guys? Because he was very, very vocal with never hitting women. We never hurt women. Seeing him quite intoxicated, lashing out. He was also known to hang with the mafia, who, as well as providing drugs allegedly, also provided him with prostitutes, and indeed on the Sting, when they did the Sting video, Sting audio track, you can hear him ordering girls like Deliveroo or something. He's got a problematic relationship with women, and for once the guy came from a loving, stable household with by all accounts a loving mum and dad who could do enough for him to see it for, but happy there was no violence at home. So what do we make of that?
Cotton shot case, isn't it?
Please.
I mean the thing is he so obviously, I mean, I guess we're getting into this point, but incredibly gifted footballer, but flawed human being, of course, and cocaine certainly got control of this man, and even if he had kind of moral convictions previously, and I'm not kind of judging it either way, I'm just saying that he became so lost in the powder he could cheat, that I don't think he even knew what was up anymore. So, his previous moral convictions probably would have gone out the window when he was, up to his big baggy of the night.
Yeah, and we do make a point on it. We never sort of label any sort of addiction or anything like that as an evil. But nonetheless, there are other people who don't use cocaine, who don't exhibit those behaviours, who don't turn into the linesman, which was probably his nickname when he was on the island.
Here comes the linesman.
But it's not just, it's not just incidents that happened when he was drunk on coke. It's years of denying that you fathered a child, that you know you fathered, because it just to make sure life easy to say I've done it, when what you should be doing is financially helping the woman who's raising that child and helping the development of that child by saying, I'm your dad and I'm Maradona. That's probably going to be a better life for you than knowing that, but never being able to say it.
Yeah, it's a good point, Andrew. That was 1986, but that Chelsea wasn't that heavily into what you just called it cheap. I know what you call it. And cheese or you spend on check. But so he fathered a child in 1986. He didn't admit he was the father until 2016. He was given a suspended jail sentence in 1998 of 2 years and 10 months for shooting a journalist with an air rifle.
Because the thing is, he grew to such a level of fame, as a lot of people discussed on this podcast, like they're not just a bit famous, they're massive icons. He could have walked the shops without getting absolutely involved, and this was his life. And he said that he created like an alter ego. So the ego was, him, the little boy from Argentina, and Maradona was this, coke-fueled, just monster who could take all the pressure that was bestowed on him and produce the highest level. I just think, why, if you're going to have an alter ego, you're going to make it your surname? Like, surely you can get a better name than that. Do you know what I mean? Like, go around going, Johnny's the little boy, but Cochrane does anything.
Okay, John, is it more of a problem? This happens all the time. Pop stars, artists, philosophers, all the people we've talked about on Equal Genius. I would argue that because of all these things you guys are digging up, Tin Hut, the working class boy, is more of a problem because he must know teenage boys, vulnerable, impressionable teenage boys, look up to a footballer, like it glamorises toxic masculinity, it glamorises drugs and women. He was in a nightclub, and Liam and Noel Gallagher walked in a bar. So you got to smile on the surface of the violence underneath. And the footballer was partying with several prostitutes. And according to Liam, Maradona's translator sent a message across that said, if you leave with any of these bitches, I'll have you shot. If you leave with any of my bitches, I'll have you shot. So like 14-year-old lad, who we are the best footballer in the world, these things get joined with the cool stuff that I aspire to, almost gang culture type ideology. So it's more of a problem
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It's very hard. I mean, we wouldn't have cities that were constantly swinging. You know, people that go on to achieve little things, especially when they've come from difficult backgrounds and then have flawed ways of dealing with it. But I guess it comes down to what you want to stand for. I keep thinking about Susan's point earlier about without Maradona you wouldn't have all the other footballers you have, and I don't know if I agree with that, because I think that they'd still have been born and they'd still have been really good at football, wouldn't they?
In general, I think one of the things that Susan's point makes is more about you had a guy who, up until that point, probably only one other football player had reached that level of icon, of significance, of not just in football, but on a societal level, and that was Pele. So you then had Johan Cruyff as well, but you know, Maradona and Pele were like, they got to superstardom, and so there were footballers coming through going, I could be like Maradona, who you know, control, basically influence my team and make them winners. But I think that with Pele and Maradona, that's the interesting thing, because there's always that, so often in things like, whether it be Ali and Fraser, there's also a duo that comes through at the same time, and they go about their task in different ways. And as you said, Russell, you know, Pele was much more conservative, very devout Christian, you know, and the only drugs he took were dick pills to try and get an erection once in a while. Whereas Maradona, up all night on the gear, you know, go out and score wonderful goals and stuff. But yeah, you know, doesn't mind hanging out with the mafia and that as well. So it was Rockstar versus Cockstar. Rockstar v Cockstar, there you go.
The actual routine, what routine? They would win on a Saturday, go out on the gear, and party till Wednesday, and then he would start to cleanse from Wednesday, like drinking water and going on the jogging machine, and then do it all again on Saturday.
And I think with Maradona, the context you need to get, and then different from everyone else, he was the true first kind of globalised football player. Like, he literally went from nothing to that. And see that transfer from Barcelona to Naples. I think that was the worst thing that could have happened. In southern Italy, where there was, you know, strong mafia connections, allegedly. You've got drugs issues there, and then you've also got that whole the mindset of that club, and then how you treat them, you know. They could go to Turin, they could go to Rome, they could go to Milan and hold their head up and say, this guy, and he won the league. So I think and then plus the 80s, it was all excess, wasn't it? It was all excess, it was all, it was that era, and I think he just became enveloped and all that.
And if he'd have signed for Bordeaux, you got really into like wine. I think the process is a bit harder to think
Do you know the thing is as well, we talked about like the influence you can have over like young boys and stuff, but like football's moved on. Like you cannot go out and, you know, have it large on the powder and then come out and play it at league level. It doesn't work anymore. So if he did actually influence any footballers, it was the ones that I played with on Hackney Marses on a Sunday morning, because they were the same guys who were up all night on the coke. So if he influenced them, it's the guys who didn't make out a 90 minutes on a Hackney Marses thing.
There are conversations now, and you know, the footballers that I've met, and you know, those frightened teenage footballers that I do meet occasionally at Leeds United events, they have people next to them to make sure that I don't get, you know, if I said to them, I know a guy who'll get us some stuff, you know, there are people around them now that say, watching these are robots. You know,
some risky cardigan material to do some extreme. Anyway, we need to start wrapping things up. We should just mention how the drug journey ended. It actually began in 1982, the drug taking. He was banned for 15 months for taking cocaine while playing for Napoli in 1991. They practically brought drugs on a tray, Maradona later reported. He was arrested in Buenos Aires for possessing half a kilo of cocaine. I couldn't even afford the luggage weight for that, let alone cocaine. He went home in disgrace from the 1994 World Cup and tested positive for a banned stimulant. People went on to ban Maradona for 15 months and ended the international community. Speaking to Argentine television in 2014, he said, "Do you know the player I could have been if I hadn't taken drugs?" He continued, "I'm 53, going on 78, because my life hasn't been normal. I'm 80, the life I've gone through. Tragic. It's time, guys. Evil or genius? I'm going to go to you first, John Richardson. Diego Maradona.
Oh, I mean, it's genuinely difficult. I do think we talk a lot about Maradona being a drug addict and a bad person, and in a sense, his time has happened. He's dead. He died at 60. He's an athlete who died at 60. Short of like wrestlers having heart attacks and steroids, that just doesn't happen anymore. So, but yeah, I just have to weigh up the sort of personal misery of the people around him, and I do find it hard to. I find it hard to let that go. So, I think, controversially, I think evil, because you can't... If I said genius, I would be saying genius purely on the grounds of the fact that he's a good footballer, and that part and everything else, or that he came from a very poor background, and that therefore meant I excused some of the... You know, I don't want to imply that a working class background, for all he was very poor, doesn't mean that you don't have a sense of right and wrong.
Indeed. That's one for evil. Leeds put one in their end. Would there be an equaliser from Scotland, says Kate?
I don't think for me, and if we're going to look at the time and the places and the world at that time and how treated subsequent footballers guilty of the same things, but probably just to a lesser degree, I think, because I think he came from a place of nothing, probably went out pretty much with nothing, died at 60, he's done his time. I think the trial by media that's happened with him has been massively unfair, and I think in this country anyway, I think, you know, if you look at over the world, but as a cultural icon for his country, and whether you like what he's done or not, we've got to apply, if we're going to apply those same rules of Playtime people, we need to do that to everyone who's been up there and been found
I've
guilty.
got time. I'll say now, I'll do a list.
But we don't, and I think a little bit all just goes back to that goal when actually they saved the goal that day. Probably all about time. And you know what? Peter Shelton, just jump better. You're sure? Just jump better and it wouldn't have happened.
So unsurprisingly, Susie McCabe goes genius, so it remains Julie Cochran, former striker of the Hackney Marsh Cocaine United team.
I was eventually banned from one army. Take it too far. So,
I know. Yeah, too much of a fucking legend tonight.
That was Cochran, not Johnny. Yeah, basically, this is a weird one for me, because so many times when I do this podcast with Russell, I change my mind during the podcast, and I think that's happened again, because this is a really, really close one. My issue is, I do think that Diego Maradona represented a lot. He represented the underdog. He came from nothing, and not only that, he championed a lot of social justice causes, and was often, you know, I only found out recently that he referred to himself as a little black kid as well. His dad, you know, had mixed heritage, and he felt like a black kid in Argentina, even though we would look at him as being white.
He was racialised as black in Argentina. People might not understand how those countries work. It's very pale skin, Spanish looking, you're white. You've got sort of Afro-Cuban, or even indigenous Indian blood, sort of racialised as black. He received a lot of racism.
Exactly, and I think that drew him towards, you know, causes of oppressed people quite a lot. And for that, I have to give him a massive tick in the genius column, because, you know, people who have these positions of influence can so often just ignore that. But literally, when you said that he hit the woman,
which is disputed by, we must say, disputed by him. The footage shows that the camera phone being struck. He said that the noise of him taking the phone. So,
well, I'm going to do a qualified vote then, and I'm going to say, if we think he was lying, and he might have been so geared up he didn't even know what he was doing, then I'm going to have to go for evil, just because overall, I agree with everything that John laid out, in the sense that, you know, we can't excuse the fact that he come from humble beginnings to have a complete lack of morality, because just because you're poor doesn't mean you don't need to beat women up and whatever. Again, the prostitutes are an excuse as well, because at the end of the day, like, you know, it got to that, there's loads of people who are doing that, and I think there'll be a lot of people who can put into the evil category, that's what you've done it on. But if he hit women, knowing the, you know, secure family unit you come from and the influence of your sisters, then ultimately he's lost himself. And at that point, despite doing some good things, he would have to fall into the evil category. If he didn't hit women, I'd probably slip him into the genius category. That's how thin it is.
It's a qualified evil for Johnny Cochran, 2-1. That means Maradona. We're taking him back. Have that, Scotland, 1986. Maradona, evil. Thanks for listening to Evil Genius from BBC Radio 4. If you're looking for more, you can listen to all our past episodes on BBC Sounds. Thank you to my panel, John Richardson, Susie McCabe, Johnny Cochran. Thank you for listening to Evil Genius from BBC Radio 4. If you're looking for more, listen to all our past episodes on BBC Sounds. I've been Russell Cade. I think it's all over. Who is now?
Climate change is real. It's happening, but it's not real. I'm Tommy, and in the new podcast, BBC Radio 4, I'll reveal 39 ways to save the planet.
We've got a new material, a new way of putting solar cells together that produces much more power than traditional or existing photovoltaics.
Well, White's brain to developing excellent carbon cutting ideas, and I'll be beating them. Paddy fields in Punjab.
The whole plant can flower in here, set seeds, and harvest the seeds and split berries.
Siberian permafrost.
There is a match deeper freeze of the permafrost when you're having a bunch of herbivores trampling on the snow. They trample on the snow by just being there and trying to find food. We made this mess and clean it up.
My biggest dream is actually contributing significantly to stopping climate change.
Subscribe to 39 Ways to Save the Planet on BBC Sounds.
This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Warning, this episode contains strong language. Genius. This is Genius, Evil Genius, from BBC Radio 4. I'm Russell Kane, and I'm neither posh nor hard, which is why I want to talk about James Bond. Evil Genius is the show where we go through the universe of stars, pluck them out, and then work out if they're as brilliantly bright as everyone pretends they were. Check out our Albert Einstein episode, for example. Yes, friendly science nerd uncle who stuck his tongue out, banter, but also cheating bastard who probably sowed the seeds for the end of humanity with science. That's banter as well, really, isn't it? Let's hydrogen Jacob. Or what about our Henry VIII episode? Pioneering British monarch who freed us from Rome and established the independence of one of the longest surviving nations on earth. Or ginger serial killer who loved pate and shooting animals with arrows. You decide. The game is simple. My panel of funny fouquets get their heads kicked about by surprising facts and revelations, and at the end of the episode, they must vote one way or the other, evil or genius. We're here today to talk about 007. Now, cards on the table. I love Bond, and while we're at it, those cards are a royal flush of hearts. It's enough to make me Roger, the hottest spy in the room. By the end of the podcast, we'll feel shaken and stirred, but as I have a BBC licence to pay, kill, my panel will find there is no time to decide whether James Bond is evil or genius. And what guests we have in the house? We have Athena Koblenou, stand-up, writer, and host of Keeping Athena Company. Regan, Heidi Regan, comedian and host of the Thin Layer of Film podcast. And got Rob as well. Rob Beckett, supervillain, past, present, and the future of comedy. They're his words. That's a supervillain introduction, Rob.
I mean, I did say that in jest when they asked how I wanted to be introduced.
That's what all villains say. Good cover story. So, one word, yes or no. Heidi, Bond, yes or no? Fan?
No.
No.
Do you want more words to that? Or
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's good to know you said Athena.
Yes.
So, I have to say, if I was going to create a Bond villain, what a name Athena Koblenz would be.
Oh my gosh.
I'm about to get my arse kicked.
You are, actually. No, that is, I'd love to be Bond villain. Absolutely, and I love Bond, and Bond villains are amazing. They're just the best characters ever.
So you like Bond, and Rob, you've got to be a fan, surely.
I'm a big fan of Bond. I don't really like the old ones because they just look like your annoying uncle. They don't look cool.
Yeah.
And it's only sort of 50-year-old men who think they're cool. Like, but I like the new ones with Daniel Craig. But I do think the villains sometimes steal the show. They're normally the best character in the film.
That'd be my dream acting part on stage. Would be something like bad, like Macbeth, or maybe Iago from Othello, or in film, I would love to play like Camp.
You want to take Camp anything? Yeah. Any excuse for you to go Camp?
I did. So I've never had much success in my acting career. I've tried so many times. Noel Clarke came to see a play I was doing in Edinburgh. And people don't know Noel Clarke's like filmmaker, that's really actually filmed. And it was this play where I was strapped in a chair playing a killer that's about to be prosecuted. And Noel was waiting for me at the end. He was like, great, do you want to be in my next film? Just a smallish part. And I was like, I must have been a junkie, a gangster. And it was a gay Scottish jeweller. My first line over the film was named Capel Necklace Tour. So right, let's go on. First of all, the biography of Bond himself. An aging, pervy drinker with an addiction to cheap one-night... Sorry, that's my Wikipedia page. Let me just move it on. Bond first appeared in 1953 in the novel Casino Royale by Ian Fleming. Fleming, a womanizer who had spent a few years working in a desk job in British intelligence, went on to write 12 Bond novels. Many have speculated that Bond is the spy Fleming wished he could be. Fleming's novels began being adapted for the cinema with Dr. No. Bond has appeared in 24 films to date and has been played by Sean Connery, George Lazenby, underrated, Roger Moore, real name Roger Gently. No, that's not. I made that up. Timothy Dalton, Pierce Brosnan, and Daniel Craig. Oh my God, the Blue Swimming Transfer ladies. Am I right? The next Daniel Craig film, No Time to Die, had to be put back because of a pandemic. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? As for Bond himself, interesting biography. Now, we've learned with genius not to excuse people because of their biographies, but when he was 11, both his parents were killed in a mountain climbing accident. Traumatic. He went to live with his aunt. He completed his schooling in 1941, even though Daniel Craig wasn't born until 1970-odd, and joined the Ministry of Defence. After the war, he continued covert work for the ministry, and after killing twice as a secret agent, earned his 00 status. He drives an Aston Martin, drinks vodka martini, and counts Pussy Galore, Honey Rider, and Holly Goodhead amongst the notches on his medal. But who is your favourite Bond? Rob's already hinted it was Daniel Craig, so I'm taking you're going to go with Daniel Craig.
Yes, I think the films have just got better. And I quite like big action scenes, special effects, and also he's blonde. You don't get many blonde leading, isn't it? I just realised a little blonde thing before and after. I'm making Daniel Craig. Blondes normally, blonde men are normally evil.
Yeah,
stuff, aren't they? Like in the Game of Thrones.
And in real life.
And in real life, I'm an awful person. Rocky Four. They're normally always like Eastern European or German terrorists, aren't they?
Yeah.
Blonde people in films. So I quite like Craig changing that up. But I think they're better films. I enjoyed them more than some of the old ones. I think you have, it's like the kind of thing, like your dad shows you them and you go, oh, these are great. You go, well, they're not really. They were great when you first saw them. But now, as you're older, anyway, maybe I'm just a philistine, but I prefer the newer ones.
Heidi, what do you think if you had to sit through a Bond?
Well, the reason I said not a fan is my history is that my dad is obsessed with James Bond, so I've seen every James Bond up until the last couple, I think. And every holiday, every time we drove anywhere, we had to play the James Bond soundtrack on a cassette in the car.
And Sam Mycroft the drove.
I was gonna say Casino Royale is the only one that actually engaged my attention in my memory, but I don't want to just go for another Daniel Craig, so I will say that Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon have made me retrospectively find Roger Moore more entertaining because of how ridiculous their impression of him is. So I think I've got the nostalgia for those because they're the ones that we watched with Dad the longest. And my dad ordered me not to pick Sean Connery.
But the James Bond Casino Royale is the more sort of cold, calculated Bond of Fleming. minus some of the dodgy agenda stuff. So if you like that, Timothy Dalton, he always gets overlooked. I've rewatched
always.
Great movie, Living Daylight, great movie. Athena, who's your favourite?
So, I will say Pierce Brosnan, only because as much as Timothy Dalton was a close second, but Pierce Brosnan just had that, just enough camp. Because there was no camp in Timothy, it was just, this isn't fun.
Again, closer to Fleming. Some would argue.
Pierce was basically like winking when he made his puns, wasn't he? He was that level of camp.
Yeah, but like, it was okay with Pierce. I don't know, I just think
So you like the campness. So I'll best be honest here. I do prefer the sort of Daniel Craig big explosion, teenage boy action scene type stuff. And some of the Brosnan cheesy, winky lines can just engage the collarbone. It's like a mini cringe, but you're saying you like that?
Yeah, because everything James Bond does is ridiculous. You know, there's a woman in Goldeneye that kills people with her thighs. Like, you just can't. Let's be real. This is a whole lot of nonsense. So let's play it like a whole lot of nonsense. Well, that's what I love.
I saw Pierce Brosnan that Mrs. Doubtfire before I saw him in Bond. So I always disliked him. It's difficult, isn't it? It's like, it's like when you see like the murderer in like an ITV, like we've done it, and then once you've seen the series, if you ever see them in public or being interviewed somewhere else, you go, I don't like them, and I can't work out why, but it's because you've seen them in something else, so it got ruined for me, basically.
Okay, so how Ingenious works is we have 3 envelopes that drive the conversation forward. Sometimes there'll be things we didn't know, sometimes there'll be genius, sometimes there'll be uncomfortable facts. One of you will have envelope number 1. When you have it, please open it and reveal what's inside.
Okay, I'll open the envelope. So, one of the UK's greatest fictional exports, entertaining audience for more than 70 years and saving the world from destruction multiple times.
Right, even if you account for the effects of accounting for the effects of inflation, the Bond films have amassed over $14 billion at current prices. It's without doubt one of the biggest British icons. It even made an appearance at the opening ceremony of the 2012 Olympics. I mean, it's undoubtable. Well, first of all, that's undoubtable. What is it about this British icon that makes him so popular? What do you think it is people love so much?
Is it that he's, smug and posh whilst killing people and scoring loads of women? Is it the old empire thing that everyone, I don't know, secretly loves? That's my guess.
But it's
like polite killing.
Well, that's what people say. When I was growing up, you had to choose posh or hard. You couldn't have both.
Yeah.
And so Bond to me, I was like, how can someone wear a posh watch, have a posh car, and be hard as fuck? To me, that's what made him so bad at it. It's like sort of English fantasy, isn't it?
Yeah, because he's sort of he encompasses everything that sort of a bloke would want, really, of like money, being having a cool job, the cars, the women. But like, as if you said to a 13-year-old boy that didn't really understand the world, on paper that's just how they want their life to be. But the reality of that is not. That never would happen, and it's mental. But I think that's what it is. It's like a teenage boy's wet dream.
Yeah, to go around having your life in danger every 2 minutes.
Yeah.
He's never able to relax.
But he's as popular in India, Australia, Canada as he is here. So people that don't even grow up thinking those cultural reference points are positive still seem to love Bond. Why?
It's just about Britishness, isn't it? It's marketing. It's like, hey, this is what Britain is like. Everyone watches Bond and everything they're on holiday. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so everywhere in the world, from India, Calcutta, Beijing. It's a bit like us going Bruce Lee. It's like, oh yeah, it must be like that anywhere in China. You know, it's just a British export. Just going on the whole thing about AU for teenage boys. Like, actually, everyone can watch James Bond. Like, I remember, there's not many things that your mum, your dad, your brother, sister, cousin can just sit down and watch. And even if someone hates it, you watch it and you love to hate it.
Yeah.
That
thinking man's Crocodile Dundee.
Oh, now I understand. Yeah, I get it.
So we're taking Bond as a character, as a real person. He saves the world. If we're talking about acts of genius, some of the things he's done, we should be particularly grateful for it. I mean, he stopped Earth being vaporized from space.
Yeah,
that's nice of him.
I read that book. They don't even go out of the planet to that book.
That's how good he is.
Yeah.
What? He don't even have to do it from home. He can save the world on Zoom, Bond.
Just unfreezing
12 strong.
I'd only be so